Well now, how are we all doing? Good? Yes. You're quite right to save your enthusiasm for the finalists. Well done. That was a test. My name is Jonathan McRae. I'm a broadcaster with News Talk, and as Mag said, I am a part of the FameLab team since its inception. This is sort of like Christmas for me because we get to come together and witness young people doing extraordinary things, bringing story to the world of science, which sometimes can be a really tricky and challenging thing to do. And so you're in for a real treat. You're going to get to see 10 talks, 3 minutes long. These guys have spent weeks, sometimes months, putting this talk together, bouncing it off people, tearing their hair out, scrapping up the paper and starting all over again. And tonight we're going to see the fruits of their labor. They have 3 minutes on stage. They have to wow our fantastic judges with clarity, content, and charisma. You need to have all those three things to be a FameLab finalist and a FameLab winner tonight, and I'm sure many of them have. First, though, let me introduce our fantastic judging panel. They are the judges who have agreed to be put through this torturous task of trying to choose the winner this year. They are Neve Shaw, who's an Irish engineer, scientist, artist, communicator, space explorer. There's not much she won't do. If you have a painting you want stuck up on the wall, she'll do that too. She was given the outstanding contribution to STEM communications by Science Foundation Ireland for her work. She's given keynote presentations at Wired, Space Rocks, NASA Johnson Centre, New Scientist Lives. She writes for BBC Sky at night and keeps bees with her father.
Yep.
I've known you for years. I did not know this. I feel like I'm meeting you for the first time.
Be serious.
Oh, buckle in. There's going to be a lot of them tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Neve Shaw. Peter Brown is a director of the Irish Research Council. This is an agency associated with the Department of Education and Skills, and they are charged with funding excellent research across all disciplines. There's an actual definition for excellent. They don't just say, oh, it has to be excellent. There's an actual definition of that. Peter is a member of the Interdepartmental Committee on Innovation 2020, the high-level group on Horizon 2020, and another key research committee. So it makes him sound very boring, but actually he's very interesting because he has climbed the Alps in his youth and is a session guitarist. And as a surprise treat, we have brought a guitar, and Peter will be playing for us at the interval. Yeah, right. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Brown. And finally, Shay Walsh is a managing director at BT Ireland, responsible for business and wholesale sales. He holds an honours degree in electronic engineering from DCU and is a passionate Dublin GAA supporter, rugby fan and cyclist. But possibly the most interesting thing about him is that his niece is Becky Lynch, who is the female WWE wrestler who won for the first time ever both titles from both of the WWE. So it's actually a huge story. So for Becky, let's give a big round of applause. And as a treat, she will be coming on at halftime and wrestling her uncle, which should be interesting. So, welcome to all of our web watchers. Put some clothes on. You're very welcome to the live stream. It's lovely to have you here because obviously this is a sold-out event, so thank you so much for staying and watching and supporting. And we do feel your presence here. If you are online or you're in studio and you would like to talk about FameLab, please use the hashtag FameLab Ireland. And FameLab 2019, is that the right hashtag? Oh, God. Yeah. FameLab and at FameLab_Ireland is important because they do metrics and stuff. And people say, well, how many tweets did you get? And apparently that's important. Right. I think we're there. We're going to be announcing the prizes later on, but they are iPad Mini for vouchers and so on. But the big prize, of course, is you get to go to Cheltenham Science Festival, which is a fantastic event. If you haven't gone, even if you're not in FameLab, it's a wonderful thing to be around. Really interesting people talking. And the culmination, is the real highlight, is the FameLab International Final, where hopefully one of these will be gracing the stage and doing their science in front of a huge audience and judges who are almost as impressive as our judges here. Let's move on to safer territory, shall I? Let's get going. So, without further ado, our first speaker is Andrea Pacheco. She's from UCC, Tyndall, IPIC. She did her undergrad and master's studies in physics at the Universidad Nacional de Colombia. She works on gas in scattering media absorption spectroscopy, which makes for some light reading, I can tell you. Good, you got it. She entered FameLab Cork to get over her fear of public speaking. I didn't expect to have to do it all over again, but that's life, isn't it? Her presentation is about optogenetics, a new branch of neuroscience which uses light to control specific cells in the brain. Let's hope her talk illuminates the neurons of our judges. Please welcome Andrea Pacheco.
It was a full moon night. My fingers were playing with his hands. My heart was about to jump out of my chest. Please raise your hand if you agree with me on the following statement. Everyone's first kiss is memorable. Now I can see how some of you with smiley face are diving deep in this sweet memory. But what about people suffering Alzheimer's disease? At the beginning, their memory loss is very mild, but with the time, they won't even remember their own name. Here we have a representation of the brain cells in our head. A single neuron is 10 times thinner than the thickness of a hair. Neurons work as millions of interconnected factories that will control our movements, our sensing, our thinking, and our memories. These factories will process emotional and physical signals, building up our individual life story. Alzheimer's will prevent some of these neurons to work properly, and we don't really know where the trouble starts, but just as any factory, if we have a breakdown in a system, we might have many trouble in other areas. We have more than 10,000 different kinds of cells in our head. And if we want to find a solution for Alzheimer's disease, we need to understand the job of each of those individually. Some studies with electrical stimulation fail because we are not able to interact with just one kind of neuron. Instead, we are working with all of them at the same time. Solving this jigsaw seemed to be impossible until a humble seaweed exhibits a light-sensitive protein that works as an automatic door that opens up when blue light is shined on top of it. Blue light will produce electrical pulses identical to those that trigger the neurons in our head. These pulses will tell the seaweed where to move to have optimum photosynthesis. But scientists took the DNA from the seaweed and implanted it into the brain of animals using a virus that will attach just to a single type of neuron. This created new genetically modified neurons that can be switched on and on by lighting light on top of the brain. When we do this, we are able to control the animal's brain behavior. Now, I am going to shine light deep into the mystery of our minds, all thanks to seaweed, and we are going to keep doing research until people having Alzheimer's disease are able to remember that first kiss.
Well done. Excellent. Well done, well done. Right. Excellent. Questions from our judges for Andrea, please.
Well done, Andrea. It's never easy to go first, so well done. And definitely, you've definitely overcome the nerves. That's great. Can I ask you a question about, are you particularly interested in Alzheimer's in your area of research? Is that the thing for you, or what is it about?
Well, as Jonathan said, I'm actually working in gas spectroscopy in the lungs of preterm babies. This is one topic that my research group is working now on, not just Alzheimer's, any kind of problems with the head, so epileptic seizures, amnesia, even addiction, everything can be studied now. Mm-hmm.
And using this technique?
Yes, we are going to start a collaboration with Dublin where we are going to try to develop nanoparticles, which are very tiny particles, to deliver into the brain and start to study these cells one by one.
How accurate does the light have to be to stimulate individual cells? They're so small.
Very accurate, because as I told, the virus is the carrier of the DNA. So we genetically modify the virus so it'll just attach to this single type of cell. So among the 10,000, you can always design 10,000 different types of virus that will just target those ones. Mm-hmm.
Fascinating stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrea Pacheco. Well done. Our second speaker is Chris Barrett. He's from the University of Limerick, where he's doing a BSc in Product Design and Technology. He works on developing assistive wearables, essentially powered clothes. And what they're trying to do in this lab is basically improve on millions of years of evolution. So good luck with that. Chris is passionate about the work that he does. He's trying to help people who are experiencing problems in lots of different spheres, but he also can perform a song about every county in Ireland, a trick he might show off in the pub later on. For a man of such talent, he's very down to earth. So please shout out loud for the awfully nice man from Limerick. Please meet Chris Barrett.
Well done. The human body is so quick that if I jumped and leaped out onto the audience, you would be able to react and probably just move to the side. Now, not everyone has this level of mobility, and I know this through a close family friend. She has 2 daughters. Their names are Kayla and Kirsten. They're 10 years old and twins, and they have so many differences, it's unbelievable. But the sad thing is, these differences extend beyond their personality. See, Kayla contracted meningitis at a very young age, and at the age of 6, had to get both of her legs amputated. She now walks with a pair of prosthetic legs. But she hasn't let it hold her back. She's incredibly bubbly and enthusiastic and runs around the place with her twin sister. And she laughs at the difference in pace between her friends, saying, "It's not the Dublin Marathon we're running, you know." So how can we improve on these prosthetics to give Kayla the chance to be at the same rate as her friends? We can do so using something called artificial muscle, which works just like real muscle does, in the sense that it expands and contracts. And it's not as complicated or expensive as you might think. We actually build it using common household materials, like this. And yes, you're dead right. This is nylon fibre. And for those of you who aren't as eagle-eyed, it's just regular old fishing line. And we can do amazing things with this fishing line. To demonstrate, I'd like to ask everybody in the room to stand up. And as you stand up, could you just turn around on the spot, please? Just once, just turn around like this. Brilliant, fantastic. You can sit back down, because that's exactly what we do with the fishing line. We take it and we turn it and turn it and turn it and turn it until we create a coil. And when we create this coil, we heat it. And when we heat it, this amazing thing happens, where it begins to contract by about 49%. So it works just like a human muscle would. And even more astonishingly, this artificial muscle is capable of lifting 100 times the amount a human muscle can. So if you imagine that I can take this stick and raise it above my head with relative ease, with artificial muscle, there's potential for this stick to be the size of a fully grown pine tree. Now, before you all start getting worried about the madman that's going to start uprooting our forests, we're a little bit away from that. But where we are is designing and integrating these artificial muscle into prostheses, which will allow kids the knee movement to cycle a bike with ease, hip flexion to dance or swim at the same rate of their friends, and maybe, just maybe, give Kayla the chance to run the Dublin Marathon. Thank you.
Well done, Chris. Okay, judges, what have we got?
Yeah, I'm interested. Is this something you see as being just independent of any signalling from the brain, or just something that would be in a standalone prosthetic limb, or do you see? Well, could it be hooked up to electrical impulses? And
that is the potential, but okay. The big benefit of the artificial muscle using the fishing line is it's just really, really cheap. So for kids, like Kayla's example, right. She used to replace them around the same amount of time she'd have to replace her shoes, which is about every 9 months to a year. And at €9,000 a pair, it's not like buying a new pair of Nikes. So it's kind of the cost-effective nature that we're focusing on.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Am I right in saying that it's heat that activates the contraction and the expansion, and the lack of the heat is the opposite?
Yeah, it's the heat that would contract it, but we're looking at numerous other ways to try and contract it as well, using lasers and things like that. You can actually, I have a few samples of them. I don't have one for everyone in the audience, I'm afraid, but for the judges. So that's it coiled, and that's just regular fishing line, and you can do that at home, just with a drill and fishing line, and apply the heat to it, and you'll see it just pull up something of really, really heavy weight.
Wow. That's really good. Unbelievable.
You can hold on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Barrie. Well done, Chris. So, our third speaker is Eileen Brennan from DCU. She's doing an MSc in Science and Health Communication. She used to take specimens from jars in museums to see if she could get DNA from them. And then she segued quite nicely, I think, into the realm of science fiction in her Master's in Science and Health Communication at DCU, where she analyses the role of science in sci-fi series. Her talk, though, is on the asteroid that killed the dinosaur. Let's hope this talk also kills, but in a less mass extinction-y sort of a way. A rapturous round of applause, please. I told you, I'm going to be making puns true-den-ite. Please welcome Eileen Brennan.
Why would anyone get excited about North Dakota? No one gets excited about North Dakota, not even, well, maybe North Dakotans and maybe some fossil nerds. But about 2 weeks ago, a paper was published that shone some light on a particular part of North Dakota that could change what we believe about the last days of the dinosaurs. Now, this site is called Tanis, and it dates back to 66 million years ago. So this is right at the edge of the just the death days of the dinosaurs. It's a place called the KT boundary, where around the world there's this line in the rocks. And below that line is the Cretaceous period. Loads of dinosaurs, all good. After that line, the Paleogene. No dinosaurs, less interesting. It's called the KT boundary because science abbreviations always make sense. And basically, our fossil bed is pressed right up against it. We know that it is the most recent fossil that you can get. And in fact, the researchers that are working on it think it might actually be from the very days that the asteroid hit. So when the paleontologists started looking at this site, they thought, okay, there's a lot of fish here, fantastic. Freshwater site, freshwater ecosystem. But the closer they looked, the more they discovered, and the rarer and more magnificent this site became. So first weird and wonderful thing, there's a lot more than just fish here. We've got trees, flowers, vertebrate bones, shells, teeth, pollen, everything. We've got a full snapshot of this ecosystem, and sites such as these are really rare. They're called Lagerstätte. I didn't pronounce that right. Lagerstätte. If you're going to spread this around to your friends, you better pronounce it right. So these Lagerstätte are sort of, well, I think the word basically just means a storage place, because it's anywhere that you find a massive diversity of fossils. And in this case, we have a proper snapshot of the ecosystem right up until the moment that, well, so there was Dino Doomsday, basically. And second weird and wonderful thing, there were some aliens in this. Not the aliens you're thinking of. Marine specimens that had managed to get into this freshwater system, and no one knew where they came from. We had shark teeth, sea turtle fossils, mosasaur teeth, even fragments of the shell of ammonites, which are a giant spirally shelled creature like a snail shell with a squid sticking out the end of it. And then third weird and wonderful thing, everything is full of glass bullets. Now, these glass bullets are well known in the fossil record as tektites, or if they're really small, microtektites. I mean, they're only a couple of millimeters long, but they're only found as fallout from massive asteroid impacts. So here we have it, the proof that this is all we need. This is the CCTV footage of the last days of the dinosaur. Now, as cool as this is, and as scientifically valuable as it obviously is, why are people talking about it? Well, the main reason is because even not in this particular paper that's just been published, but all the other researchers involved in it, they've told us that they found dinosaurs. And that might seem pretty obvious because it's the Cretaceous, it's the land of the dinosaurs, but no one has ever found dinosaurs within the last couple 100,000 years up to the KT extinction, let alone on the day it happened. So this is unprecedented. And because scientists are a bit cautious, let's say, they are really debating whether or not to believe these rumors because they're not in a published journal. But this is only the first paper. In the next few years, we could be seeing thousands is a bit much, hundreds of papers coming out of this site requiring interdisciplinary collaboration, because there's so much there. And a couple years to find out whether or not an asteroid actually killed the dinosaurs and it wasn't just volcanoes or methane seeps or aliens doesn't seem that long when you're talking about the 66 million years it took for us to find them. So research takes a while. It really does, and especially paleontological research. This site was discovered 7 years ago, but it's only getting its first paper now. But I think it's worth the wait.
Well done. Very interesting and very current. Questions for Aisling, please.
When you said interdisciplinary collaboration, what specialities are you referring to there when you mention that?
Well, the current paper that's just been published is dealing predominantly with geologists and fish fossil specialists from that era. And it's more to sort of set the scene, make sure that we know we've definitely got the right time and the right asteroid. But with the variety of fossils that they've described, a number of them possibly being new species or even new genuses, you're going to need experts in the field to all come down to North Dakota. So in the meantime, they're sending fossils off to different museums and laboratories, but in the end, you're going to need everyone, an expert in every fossil group that's found there.
Any other questions from our judges?
I thought the biggest asteroid hit down in Mexico. How did they find this one in Dakota?
Well, see, here's the thing. You're completely right, and it is the Chicxulub asteroid that hit. So this is fallout from this Chicxulub asteroid 4,800 kilometers away up in North Dakota. So, yeah.
Wow.
Great stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, Aisling Brennan. Someone has left their wallet up on stage, and I've told the British Council had a word with me, and they said, this is not how we do it this year. It's not how we're selecting the judges. It's gone all clean. Our fourth speaker is Dr. Fiona Malone. She works as a research fellow in the Medical Engineering and Technology Gateway at Galway Mayo Institute of Technology. She loves chatting about STEM, and if she's not writing about her research and academic experiences for RTE Brainstorm, she's joking about them at Bright Club Galway. She's currently working on a robot that mimics swallowing, so medical device companies can test their devices that are designed to treat dysphagia, which is a common swallowing disorder. I was going to do a gag about swallowing, but then I thought it was in poor taste. Okay, I can see it's time for me to exit stage right for our fourth FameLabmer, so I'll leave you alone with Fiona Malone.
Mrs. May is the most glamorous granny in the village where I come from. In fact, she is so glam that my mother and I have dubbed her the Glammy of the village. She's probably best known for being the controversial head judge of the bake-off in the local bake-off competition, with her favourite competition to judge being the exotic cheesecake category. But we don't see much of Mrs. May anymore. Ever since her stroke last year, she suffers from something called dysphagia, which means she has lost the ability to swallow properly. Now, I want you all to imagine your favourite food in front of you. Lasagna. Yeah, good choice. I want you to imagine eating it. I want you to imagine tasting it. And I want you to imagine enjoying it. Because when you have dysphagia, that's all gone. And it's incredibly common in people who have suffered a stroke and those who live with MS, Parkinson's, and various forms of cancers. And it's really common more than you think, with over 30% of over 65s all over the world living with dysphagia every day. Which is crazy. I mean, we swallow over 600 times a day. That's like 25 times an hour. I bet you just did it there and you didn't even realise. But you might be salivating at the lasagna. And when you swallow, what happens is your body uses 50 pairs of muscles to transfer your lasagna from your mouth to your throat, and then down towards your stomach via a stretchy tube called the esophagus. And this esophagus is really cool. These muscles work together to squeeze the food through the esophagus in a motion known as peristalsis, a little bit like when you squeeze that last bit of toothpaste out of the toothpaste tube onto your toothbrush. Unless you're one of those maniacs that squeezes from the top, because then... yeah, we need to talk. But if you've got dysphagia, your peristaltic motion or your swallowing motion has been disrupted in some way, or your esophagus, that stretchy tube, has become blocked. What my research looks at is trying to reverse engineer that whole swallowing process so we can test devices to treat dysphagia. So I'm building a swallowing robot. And what I do is I recreate the esophagus tube using a material that's just as stretchy as we need it to be, and I coat it in a lubricant that mimics saliva. I then program my robot or tell my robot just how strong or how much force I want to push the food through this tube and how fast I want it to do that. So I can mimic not only healthy swallowing and that unhealthy swallowing for people with dysphagia. This robot is being used to test devices to treat dysphagia so we can encourage people with dysphagia not only back to the dinner table, but back into the community. And for our hashtag Glammy Mrs. May to reprise her role as a Simon Cowell of the cheesecake world.
Well done, Fiona. Questions for Fiona, please. It's fascinating.
What kind of materials are you using to simulate these esophagus?
I'm using types of silicones. So I work in MET in GMIT, so up in Galway, and we specialise in making biosimulators. And we're quite good at making cardiovascular simulators to test for like stents and pacemakers and things like that. So this is our first delve into gastroenterology and esophagus, which is scary. But the silicone works quite well because your esophagus is incredibly stretchy and slippy, and it allows us to recreate that kind of motion.
And what would a successful device kind of look like that would actually successfully treat this condition?
Dysphagia. There's so many different types of dysphagia. It could just mean that you need to go to the speech and language therapy and kind of go to the gym for your mouth and relearn how to swallow. Some people, I was actually chatting to my friend Leah at the weekend, her mother suffers from it. She's got no saliva in her mouth at all. But for the robot that I'm working on, it is stents mostly. And what they do is they insert a stent to open up the esophagus when there's a blockage or if that peristaltic motion has stopped. So the food can finally reach the stomach and they can have their food.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give your hands together for Dr. Fiona Malone. Flying through it. Right, our next speaker is Eileen Courtney. She's from University of Limerick. She's working in nanotechnology and material characterization. She's looking at 2D materials using electron microscopy. She says she's studying the world one atom at a time. Given there are an estimated 10 to the 50 atoms in the world, I don't think she's going to be finishing that PhD anytime soon. Her talk is about radiation and why it gets a bad rap. Well, it's her time to shine now, so please release some energy and make some noise for the brilliant Eileen Courtney.
I brought spares if anyone else is hungry. Judges, anyone? Yup, we've got a taker. Go on. If you listen to the media these days, you'd be forgiven for thinking everything causes cancer. And one of the main culprits the media likes to put a little bit of blame on is radiation. I'm a fan of radiation in the form of bananas. Bananas are actually radioactive. So why have we never seen a media article telling us to keep them away from our children? The reason is because radiation is highly misunderstood. Radiation, quite simply, is the transfer of energy from one place to another. That's it. There are loads of different types of radiation, and most of them are harmless. Think about this. In your house, you have a radiator. It's right there in the name. Radiators use radiation, infrared radiation, to help heat your house. But the media has never said to take the radiator out of your house, you're going to get cancer. Because they don't. They don't have enough energy to interact and damage our cells. We have to worry about high energy radiation in the form of ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation is radiation that has enough energy to get into your atoms and cause damage, which can lead to cancer. So if it's a question of energy, what is the different scales? Right down at the bottom, the lowest energy radiation, you have radio waves used in your Wi-Fi and your phones and your radios, microwaves, infrared radiation, visible light, which you're using to stare at me. And then we get into the danger zone with UV and X-rays and gamma rays. This upper bracket is what we have to be worried about in our daily life. This upper bracket is ionizing and causes cancer. So, if bananas are radioactive, where do they go on this scale? Right up the top. Bananas release gamma radiation because of the potassium in them. Now, if they're so highly energetic and dangerous, why are we not worried? The danger is in the dosage. There's such a little amount of potassium in bananas, it releases such a teensy tiny amount of radiation that for you to increase your likelihood of getting cancer by less than 1%, you would have to eat 1,020,408 bananas at the same time. Your stomach is going to rupture way before you have to worry about cancer. So, the next time you see a media article which tells you, be careful of this, be careful of that, there's radiation everywhere and we're all going to die. Do your research. Figure out what type of radiation it is it ionizing, and what's the dosage, so you know whether to be worried or whether the media is just going bananas.
Eileen, everyone. Very good. So, judges, questions for Eileen.
So, Eileen, how does this relate to your own research? How did this come about?
It came about from a number of debates with individuals who didn't know to check what the media says every so often. So it's more of a pet project of mine to help educate people who start to think that, you know, they have to be careful of their phones or their Wi-Fi or stuff like that, because, guys, they do not actually cause cancer no matter what the media says.
So being a communicator is an important part of what you do. What is it about it that you like so much?
I like getting to make a few people laugh and joke, but I also like that quite often, talking to someone who might not come from a scientific background, they have different ideas. They think of things in a way that I might not see. So it's been quite often talking to just normal, everyday people down at the shop getting something to eat, and someone asks me about my research, and they give me an idea for a new experiment to try.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eileen Courtney! Okay, so we're halfway through. Our sixth speaker is Hayden Wilkinson. He's at the National Institute of Bioprocessing Research and Training at UCD, and he's working on the design of biomaterial implants in regenerative medicine. His work focuses on studying a group of molecules called O-glycans that bind to an array of proteins found in our cells and tissues, and what they might tell us about degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. O-glycans are, of course, sugars, so you might say Hayden is a sweet talker. But Hayden was made in the traditional way, but his 3 minutes are on the future of genetics and the dangers of picking and choosing traits in IVF. Will he impress our judges? It's like stealing candy from a designer baby. Please welcome Hayden Wilkinson.
This is a story about twins Lulu and Nana, born last year into a difficult world of climate change. Ooh. Plastic oceans, ooh, and Donald Trump, ooh. They were born of something very special. They are not one, but two of a kind. They were the world's first designer babies. Now, I'm not talking about no Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Prada designer babies. I'm talking about genetically modified babies. See, when Lulu and Nana were just a single cell old, they were treated with this CRISPR technology which edited their genes, giving them resistance to HIV. Now, Hayden, did you just say crispy technology? No, I didn't, although that would be delicious. No, CRISPR, or clustered Clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic sequence technology is a genetic engineering technology which lets us edit the genes of our choosing, and it actually comes from a process found in bacteria. See, when bacteria are invaded by a virus, they scan their cellular memory bank for DNA that matches the virus's DNA. When they find it, a copy is made. This copy then binds to Cas9, a huge, yellow, murderous, eating protein. Together, the DNA and Cas9 seek out the virus with the similar DNA, and, well, you guessed it, waka waka waka, Cas9 eats the virus and saves the day. But so what? We're not bacteria, and only politicians are viruses. Hey. How does this relate to the twins at all? Well, you see, by reverse engineering our Cas9 friend here to do our bidding, we can feed it any sequence of DNA and it will find the corresponding DNA within our own genes. Instead of Cas9 eating our DNA, it will actually edit it. So was the case for Lulu and Nana. Their CCR5 gene was edited with this crispy, delicious technology. So, like a droplet of water into a vast ocean, there was a lot of ripples into the world of skepticism and ethics. The scientists responsible for the actual process operated under a cloud of secrecy during the whole thing. What they did was, and is still to this day, actually illegal. They poorly edited the twins' genetic code and didn't in fact change anything. They were going to be born healthy babies anyway. What we really need to do is take a step back and realise it took Earth 4 billion years to evolve life, and now we're trying to change it in a matter of minutes. So, in the end, we've got the good. Lulu and Nana are HIV resistant. We've got the bad. They might not be resistant to many other things now that this genetic change could have caused many different cancers. And we've got the ugly. Like my Eurovision 2020 audition tape, the world is just not ready yet. Thank you.
Well done. Well, you were just slaying it this year. A question from our judges.
So what does the future hold for Lulu and Nana, is it?
Lulu and Nana,
What
that's
kind of
right.
life are they going to have?
Yeah,
what
well,
kind of observation are they going to be under? Will they be able to live a normal life?
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. So now that they're HIV resistant, or so-called HIV resistant, they might be susceptible to a lot of other genetic conditions because this CRISPR technology is not actually perfect and it might have edited other genes without meaning to. So there are links to autoimmune troubles because of this change in their DNA and potential memory loss as well. Now, these are a few studies that were done. So it could be really dangerous for them growing up. So it sort of serves as a good idea. CRISPR technology could be a great idea, but we're just not there yet, and we shouldn't really be testing on these life-having humans, So, yeah.
Thanks.
And there is the ethical impact. And
Yes.
how would you stand about the ethics of
so
modifying babies?
Yeah, so I think it's a good idea and a good technology, but again, because it's just not ready, it shouldn't be performed on babies. And what was actually done during this whole process, the scientist involved in it actually sort of dodged a few ethical loopholes, and that kicked up a lot of controversy. And then on top of that, this was in China that it happened. On top of that, it was found out later that maybe the government actually mandated this. So there's a lot of sort of skepticism here, but at the end of the day, these are children who are affected, and these are children with no choice on the matter as well. So that's the biggest concern. Yeah. Okay.
I'd love it if ethical loopholes were physical things, and to get through them, you didn't have to do this sort of a...
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hayden Wilkinson! Now, Louise Moshevsky is from Teagasc. She's at the Food Research Centre there, and Tyndall in Cork. She's trying to develop a biosensor for quick detection of E. coli in beef, which would be very welcome. The last time she entered a competition like this, she won a prize delivering the talk in French, which is impressive because French is her third language. She's going to give us a talk in her second language now, English, and her talk is on the movement of electrons from one element to another. So clearly she'll try and build a little chemistry with our audience and electrify our judges in her 3 minutes. She's all charged up and ready to go. Please welcome Louisa!
Do you know this feeling of a void in your heart? The void that only that special someone could fill. From early childhood, we learn that only finding a true love could complete our life. The same happens in chemistry, but the chemicals don't care about receiving flowers. Instead, they get attracted with the electrons. There is a constant fight for affection happening in your phone right now. And I'm not speaking about your dating apps. I'm talking about the battery. Every battery consists of two groups of chemicals. The first group has a negative charge and a pocket full of electrons, while the second group, with a positive charge, has an empty pocket. But they are very greedy. So once you connect them, the electrons start flowing in a positive direction, creating electricity. This creation of electricity using chemical reaction is what we call electrochemistry. But electrochemistry has much more applications than this. Please raise your hand if you are drinking tap water. I do as well, but I often hear from my friends that they don't drink tap water after hearing the news of heavy metals found there. Let's take lead as an example. Lead is a toxic heavy metal, which was a big problem in Ireland because the very old houses here may still contain the lead pipe system. But what if I tell you that by using electrochemistry and our sensors, which are smaller than a dump, in the near future, any one of you will be able to test your own tap water. When lead is floating in the water, it has a positive charge. It means that he is craving electrons to feel complete. We provide him these electrons by applying electric potential. Lead, happy he can finally settle down, sticks to the electrode. Surprisingly, the relationship with lead was toxic. With another potential kick, we help them to separate. While lead has to start using Tinder again, we can measure the amount of electrons released and correlate it to the concentration of lead in water. And all of that happening in less than the time of my speech. So, the next time you start thinking that your life is like a soap opera, just remember that you are not alone. With electrochemistry, there might be lots of drama happening even in your kitchen sink. Thank you.
I could listen to that accent all day. It's a gorgeous voice. Judges.
Louisa, does the device not just measure, but it also eradicates the lead from the water, or is it just detecting?
No, it's just detecting the concentration, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you were to advance that, how would you, given your background in electrochemistry, is there a way for us to come up with a device where we could easily remove these heavy metals from our water, from our tap water sources?
Maybe in this way. I don't know if now I'm talking something that is completely not possible. Mm-hmm. But if, like I said, because we actually deposit lead by applying this negative potential, we deposit it on the electrode. Maybe it is possible then to just take out the electrode and the water will be clean. Actually, I never thought about this, but this is a good point. I will check if actually they do it.
Really useful.
Yeah, I just focus too much on detection.
That's your job.
Yeah.
The answer is right there.
Oh my God, I was blind.
Now you can see.
Any other questions for Louisa?
Yeah.
All good?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Louise Moshevsky. Jean Risk is at the University of Limerick, where he's a PhD candidate in applied mathematics and statistics. Jean is also a personal trainer and a competitive athlete in both CrossFit and indoor rowing, which makes him the very man to talk about health tonight. His presentation is about how to use pure mathematics to fix our health system, which can only be an improvement on the current technique, which is using pure aegis to fix our health system. 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 4. Please welcome Jean Risk to the floor.
One of the main differences between us and other animal species is that we use the concepts of yesterday and tomorrow. We always tend to learn from the past to anticipate the future. Predicting the future is essential for our survival. It helps us to avoid chaos. It gives us time to plan ahead and make life-saving decisions. With time, we started to realize that the more we know about the past, the more accurate our predictions can be. So for that reason, we started to record and save everything we do in the present. We save every location we visit, every phone call and SMS, every Facebook like and tweet, every email and an online purchase. We are recording everything. And all these digital activities that we do, we now call big data, which is a detailed picture of us that companies and government organizations and scientists can use to predict our future behavior, our preferences, opinions, and desires. But the question is, how do we use data to predict the future? Well, we use mathematics. Yes, mathematics, the subject that terrified generations and caused us anxiety whenever we dealt with it. But nowadays, we are using mathematics differently. We are using it as a language to talk to the real world. And that language is called mathematical modeling. I'm going to show you a very simple example of a mathematical model that uses data to produce predictions. Suppose we want to predict the temperature of the Earth 5 years from now. And let us assume that the temperature of the Earth and time are directly proportional. So we immediately think of the equation y equals ax, where y and x are directly proportional. No panic now. We can simply replace y by the temperature and x by the time. And to predict the temperature 5 years from now, we just need to replace the time by 5 and multiply it by a. But what is a? It is a change of temperature over the years. And where do we get a from? Historical data. We look back and we see how the temperature has been changing over the years, and from that we infer the value of a. So now we have a mathematical model that's like an engine that runs on data to produce predictions. Now obviously this is a very simple model, and we can use more complex ones to predict population growth, economic conditions, weather conditions, outcome of elections. Even the construction of the black hole image that was released last night was based on a mathematical model called Gaussian mixture model. I believe that data is the new oil, and mathematical modeling is a crucial part of modern science. It is not just a collection of theorems. It is an in-demand scientific field that we can always use to unravel the future's hidden secrets. Thank you.
Judges.
Thank you. The issue of it, like, are we developing the technology to actually analyze and make sense of the data quick enough to actually deal with the sheer volume of data that we're generating? Is that a challenge?
Well, yeah, big data, it is a challenge. And the thing is, our algorithms that we build are kind of slow to deal with this large data. So what we're doing is we're developing new techniques to deal with the large data, also using mathematics and statistical modeling. So it is an issue nowadays, obviously, but it's
on the hardware. Do we have the hardware? Do we have the computer capacity? There are the
that's one of the things.
To do it?
Yeah, computer capacity is one of the things, definitely, and memory and everything. Yeah, but this is something that there's like research about it at the moment, which is how to deal with big data, how to build algorithms that can deal with big data.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm in telecom, so I like big data because it drives business onto our network. But has anybody reached out to you for financial modelling for the stock markets in the future? Because that could be an interesting application.
I don't work in finance, but what I do is I use healthcare data to model the emergency department in hospitals. So what I use is patient length of stay data to predict how long a patient would wait in an emergency department or on any healthcare system.
Yeah, sure, he's using math for good, not
yeah.
for evil.
Well, I was really afraid of Peter.
How do we make more money?
That'll pay for more hospitals.
Touche. But my models are applicable as well in that area as well. Yeah. Well done. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jean Rees. The most beautiful voices, really, as someone who geeks out on the sound of voices from a radio point of view, which is hearing such a beautiful mix. Saoirse McCrann is our next speaker. She's at the Technology University Dublin. Used to be DIT, just in case you're wondering. I've never heard of that one before. She's studying optometry, specifically focusing on pediatrics and short-sightedness. It's not hard to see that she is passionate about her work, and that she says her biggest weakness is that she says yes to everything. Tonight, though, the question is whether or not our judges will say yes. So will Saoirse be their apic, or will they be myopic? Let's find out. Please welcome Saoirse McCrann.
My brother smokes over 20 cigarettes per day. My brother is 2 to 3 times more likely of having a stroke. My dad, on the other hand, has poorly controlled high blood pressure. Now, Dad is 2 to 3 times more likely of having a heart attack. Me, I'm Saoirse, and I'm short-sighted. I am 2 to 3 times more likely of going blind. Blind? Did that surprise you as much as it surprised me? Because I'm only a little bit short-sighted, which means I only wear my glasses to see in the distance because my eye has grown a little bit too long. But yes, short-sightedness is among the top 3 causes of blindness in my age population in Ireland. And what's more, it's the fastest growing condition in the world. Like, think about it. We all know someone that wears glasses to see in the distance. So what's the solution? What can we do for short-sightedness? What is the Nicorette to my brother's cigarette, or the de-stressor from my dad's blood pressure? Well, let's look at the causes of short-sightedness and see if we can nip it in the bud. Because I think we all know prevention is better than any cure. So the recent increases in short-sightedness are thought to be due to our lifestyle changes. For instance, in a study I carried out last year, I found that short-sighted students used almost double the amount of smartphone data compared to non-short-sighted students daily. So, do you mean to tell me it's my phone that could be causing these recent increases? Am I spending too much time creeping on Instagram? Or are you binge-watching too many Netflix documentaries? Or Shay, perhaps you're trying out too many Snapchat filters? Well, possibly, yeah. Because if you think about it, our world is now up here. Everyone, do this with me for a moment. Put your finger in front of your face like this, and look at your finger. It's about the distance the phone is from your face. And your finger is nice and clear. But you will notice when you're looking at your finger that the world around your finger is blurred. And it's this blur imaged onto the back of our eyes that could be causing us to become short-sighted. So therefore, in a world that is full of smartphone-aholics, we need to take our eyes off that small screen and look at the bigger picture. Because every week, an extra 1 million people in the world are diagnosed with short-sightedness. So, will you be next? Thank you.
Well done, Saoirse. That was flying by. Judges, questions, please.
So, what can we do in the long term? You know, because you're right. I mean, we're all stuck in front of a screen. You know.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things. There is optical methods. So you can get contact lenses for short-sightedness to try and stop the progression, try and slow down the progression. Okay. There's also pharmaceuticals, so a drug called atropine that we can put an eye drop in our eye, and we're now doing new clinical trials, and that will be my postdoc. And then there's lifestyle changes. So like that, going outside more, spending less time in front of a screen, less time in front of a computer, an iPad, a Kindle, it all makes a difference.
Anything we can do for the actual to diagnose it very early in
There's also work being done on that as well. So what happens is that short-sightedness is when your eye grows too long. So the length of the eye actually grows a little bit longer before you become short-sighted. So you can be pre-short-sighted. So in future, hopefully, we will get an eye test done very early on that not only looks at what you can see, but looks at the length of your eye and see if we can catch it earlier.
Any other questions from our judges? No? Ladies and gentlemen, Saoirse! We are flying through. We only have one speaker left. Can you believe it? Please welcome James Blackwell. He is a PhD candidate and as part of the NUI Galway Medical Physics Research Cluster. He's thrilled to have made the final tonight because he feels communication is key to great research. His presentation is about the unexpected dangers of genetic testing. It's a little talk he put together for you tonight. And as I go to the front row one more time, this is exhausting. Please put your hands together for James Blackwell.
So, imagine you've gotten away for over 30 years for a string of murders in the 80s, and the only reason you get caught is that your relations wanted to see how Irish they were. What I'd like to talk about today are personal genetic testing kits, some of the risks behind them, and how they were used to catch the Golden State Killer. Companies like Ancestry.com and 23andMe offer a service where you can find out your heritage using personal genetic testing kits. These work by taking a saliva sample, sending it off to the lab, and for a fee of about €100, you can find out where your ancestors came from. But how do they work? In every cell in your body are the 23 pairs of chromosomes that contain all the information about what makes you, well, you. A chromosome looks a bit like a ball of wool, where your DNA, your genetic blueprint, is a string that's wrapped tightly together. Single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs, are the most common type of genetic variation among people. They're kind of like a random change in color in the wool and can be used by scientists to locate different genes. They can also be used to track the inheritance of disease genes within families. So you can also find out your genetic predisposition for diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and some cancers. So this all sounds great. You're getting two important bits of information for only €100. But how is this profitable for the companies? It seems like a lot of work on their part. Well, after they receive your personal details and your DNA, they now have a lot of valuable information about you. As an example, 23andMe has analysed the DNA of over 5 million people to date. That's a lot of information about people's location, ancestry, and genetic predisposition to sell in this era of big data. In fact, they recently signed a $300 million deal with a large pharmaceutical company to develop new drugs based on this research. But what's to stop this information being used to identify you in the future? You may think this sounds like some Orwellian fiction, but it's already happening. The prolific Californian murderer known as the Golden State Killer was recently identified after a genetic profile from a 1980s crime scene was uploaded to a database. It turns out that members of his extended family also had genetic tests done that were in the database. And by matching the location of the SNPs, a family tree was generated that identified the killer, whose identity was confirmed with further DNA testing. In this case, justice may have been served, but it represents an ethical minefield for the future. So, before you go about posting your saliva, please be aware that you could be giving away a lot more than you bargained for. Thank you for your time.
Well done, Karen. Hi, judges.
Yeah. So, have you done a test? Would you?
A friend of mine has, and this is kind of what...
Would you personally do
no,
a test?
Definitely
okay.
not.
Okay.
This is what kind of got my whole interest. He told me, oh yeah, I got this done. I'm 20% Russian or whatever. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then saw all this other information afterwards. It's fascinating.
In the days of, like with GDPR compliance
Yes.
and all that kind of private, you know, how could this be used? And like, how are people allowed
So,
to?
yeah, this a certain company got into a lot of hot water about this because there was an option to opt out, but it was in the middle of their 20-page terms and conditions, which nobody reads the terms and conditions, let's be honest. So I think they're starting to get better at it now, but I'd say it would be quite difficult to opt out.
Any other questions for James?
Why is it important, James? Why is this important in terms of big data? Why does it matter about our genetic information being passed
Well,
on?
it's not just your physical fingerprint, but it's your genetic fingerprint that's going to be on file forever, which is kind of a terrifying thought. You can remove your fingerprint if you really want to, but your genes are always going to be stuck with you. So, yeah, it's just something to think about, definitely.
Ladies and gentlemen, our final speaker, James Blackwell. Well, now, as my brother would say, decision o'clock. So what we're going to get you to do is have a think yourselves. It's a really, really, really tricky judgment you have to make. You have an opportunity in your brochures to choose your favourite. I believe pens will go around, or you can etch it in blood if you choose. We're going to say goodbye to our judges, so you have literally 15 minutes, I think. As quickly as you can, judges. I know it's hard, but if you can give a round of applause for our judges as they disappear to deliberate. Prizes are a cash prize of €1,500, iPad Mini 4, €250 voucher, and the special audience prize will get a science gallery bag as well. Yes, Liz? Tick one. Just tick one. Don't tick many. Just tick one. Yes, Liz, thank you for that. We're gonna bring, it won't be too long, and we'll bring back the winners. We'll do a big clappy thing, and then you can go off. There is a reception afterwards if you'd like to join and have a few drinks. Get there quick, because the booze goes pretty fast. I'm delighted now to introduce our interval speaker. Dan Simpson is a writer, performer, producer, educator. He's performed all over the world: Glastonbury, Edinburgh Fringe, Chicago, and on BBC Radio. He's a former Canterbury laureate. His first collection of poetry was Applied Mathematics, and as half of Dr. Illingworth and Mr. Simpson, he creates science-inspired spoken word shows, bringing poets and scientists together to create original performances. I'm really looking forward to this. Please welcome Dan Simpson.
Good evening, FameLab. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Yeah, I get it. It's a bit weird being a poet on a bill of scientists. I feel a little bit out of place. I'm going to do a poem about feeling like that, about feeling like you don't quite fit in. It's also about this little fella, which Hayden's going to love. Okay. Yeah, no, put that away. That's the whole point. All right, it's a little poem about this fella, the orange ghost from Pac-Man. Video games are my favourite technology. Goes like this. There are 4 ghosts in Pac-Man: a red one, a pink one, a blue one, and an orange one. I have a lot of sympathy for the orange ghost in Pac-Man. Their names in Japanese are Keibai, Pink Eye, Aisuke, and Gazuta. Translated, that means red guy, pink guy, blue guy, and slow guy. Slow orange ghost. Their characteristics in Japanese are oikake, mashibushi, kimagore, and otoboke. Translated, that means chaser, ambusher, fickle, and stupid. Stupid, slow orange ghost. Other names they've been given are urchin, romp, stylist, and crybaby. Crybaby, stupid, slow, crybaby, orange ghost. In America, they're called Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde. Clyde, stupid, slow, crybaby, orange ghost, is not allowed to fit in with the other ghosts with a name that rhymes. Because you're rubbish, orange ghost. You were never good enough for your father, were you? You always failed to get A grades in school, and you never learnt to play guitar like you said you would. You were the odd one out in your family, mainly because you're orange. And now you're stuck in a dead-end job, pursuing a string of loveless relationships and paying for a mortgage on a house that you don't even like. But don't be blue, because you can't be blue, can you, orange ghost? For one day, you will show them, orange ghost. You will break out of your shell like a little orange duckling. You will grow into a beautiful orange swan, stretch your hopes as far as your wingspan and reach for the skies. Achieve flight on an airstream made of more than inert gas, an airstream made of fulfilled ambition and your own power. But if you don't, orange ghost, then I will always be there for you. And that's a pact, man. Thank you. Hey. All right, so I'm a poet who likes to write about science and I suppose the natural output of science, which is technology. Video games are one of my favourite technologies, of course. Anyway, any other video game fans in? Yeah. Oh, I'm surprised, only a few people. I thought we had a room full of nerds. All right, so it's true. Pac-Man, the orange ghost Clyde, is kind of programmed different to the other ghosts. The red ghost hunts down Pac-Man. The pink and the blue ghosts chase him down and kind of block him off in various ways. The orange ghost, Clyde, is actually programmed to run away from Pac-Man if he gets too near, which I find kind of adorable. It means he's coded differently, and I think perhaps we all feel like we're coded differently at times. So I like to write about technology. My favourite kind of technology is the Rube Goldberg machine. I heard a murmur, some Rube Goldberg fans in, fantastic. This is Rube Goldberg, one of his illustrations. You would have seen these machines. There's a famous OK Go video. If you played the game Mousetrap, there's a Honda advert. It's the kind of machine where you hit a button and that sends a marble down a track, and that turns on a fan, and that blows a boat across a bit of water. That sets some dominoes falling, and that hits a switch, and that pops up some toast. You could have just popped up the toast. So a Rube Goldberg machine, the definition is, it's an overly engineered device that performs a simple task in a complicated way. Poetry. Often trying to say something very, very simple and massively overcomplicates it. So to give an example of it, I'd like to do a Rube Goldberg poem for somebody in the audience. I think poetry should connect with people, so I'm going to use a kind of hacker method, brute force method. I'm going to do it for someone. Is there a red-headed person? Ideally a volunteer, but it might be over here. What's your name? Aisling. Aisling. Oh, you're coming up. That's very lovely, but you can sit down. It's okay. It's fine. It's very kind of you, Aisling. Aisling, a Rube Goldberg machine. So very, very complicated, very simple at the end. Aisling, my red-headed friend, Rube Goldberg poem goes like this. Copper elements conduct an electric symphony. Dark undertones swelling to a chromatic cadence, a shock of auburn strings and burnished strands, textured chords flowing over semi-obscured ears. The arrangement of your autumnal locks refracts the late summer sunlight. An amber glow frames your face, Aisling. Your hair looks nice today. Thank you. Right? Could have just said it. Could have just said it. So poetry, massively overcomplicating simple things since about 4000 BC. I think science does the opposite. Science explores complicated things and tries to explain it to us. Then we as poets get that and recomplicate it. You're welcome. Technology is one of my bags, I suppose. I've talked about video games, and video games go through the process of open beta, which any computer engineers, any software designers in the audience? Do you have any people who fiddle around with code? A couple of people, yeah. So what you'll know is when you release a piece of software, it goes through this stage of open beta. It's where people kind of test it out and say what's working, what's not, sorting out all the bugs in it and stuff like that. And I think as artists, as writers, we have to do that too. You can't just write a poem and assume it's the best poem that's ever been written, though if you've ever been to a poetry night, you've definitely seen that. I think science is really good at this. Science tests its hypotheses. Science doesn't say, here is the idea, and I'm stopped. That's it. I'm going to test it, work it out. We're going to peer review it. We're going to confirm whether it's true or not. I'm sure there are no scientists who have an idea and cling to it forever, regardless of the data and evidence that might go against it. So this poem itself, with that, I guess, spirit in mind, this poem is actually in open beta. So any feedback you have at the end of it will be massively appreciated. Just a silly little sound effect to introduce it. All right, it's just silly. Okay, here we go. This poem isn't done yet, but I thought it might be useful to test it out. Put it in front of people. Get some feedback about what's working, what's not working, that sort of thing. What people might want to see in future versions of this poem. Do you like the opening sequence? Please let us know. Quick warning, this build of the poem is not for sale or to be professionally reviewed. It is very much a work in progress. We hope to release a final 1.0 version soon, but that will still need updates, little patches to correct any errors, since it's so tough to sort every little problem in a poem like this, in any poem, I suppose, for that matter. Do you like the pauses in that last line? Please let us know. Thank you for your feedback from the first draft of this poem. We have made some changes based on your suggestions and some that you did not ask for. We completely ignored many of your requests. A list of things changed in this version. Fixed infinite recursion at the start, sorted out that line that suggested Oedipal feelings, removed all dud metaphors from the poem, improved strength of end of poem boss fight, reticulated splines, patched holes in metaphors, added verbs. Sorry for any freeze-ups that you encounter, but that's the nature of autumnal. Flat share. Beyonce. Do you like the missing asset here? Please let us know. Some bugs may become features of the poem in the future if they enhance your experience of the poem or are critically praised as aesthetically beautiful. Enjoy the glitches while they last. They ultimately may be more interesting than the final poem. This line is in capitals and I don't know how to fix it yet. Do you like rhetorical questions? Please don't let us know. Your read-through of this poem is important to us. We've put so much work into it, but we can't be bothered to test it ourselves. Do send us an email with any thoughts on this poem, any issues that you have. Please let us know. Is the central character strong enough? Please let us know. Save your progress through this poem regularly. In this version, crashes are common, so don't worry if it suddenly... Thank you. Need that for later. Thank you. So yeah, any feedback on the poem, massively appreciated. We talked about software, and we talked about the software that was used to develop the image of the black hole just yesterday, I think it was. And that was massively inspiring to me. I think poets are kind of used often in shorthand in film, and Ashley mentioned that science, she checks science in sci-fi films, so its accuracy. Poets have a thing in films that poets are used to kind of try to sum up the numinous, the inexplicable and unexplainable. That's what poets' roles are supposed to be. Famously, this is really difficult. I'm sure we all know this quote from the film Contact, when Dr. Ellie Arroway sees this beautiful outer space image, and she's dumbfounded. She's lost for words. No words to describe it. Poetry. They should have sent a poet. So I took that idea and wrote a poem about it, because I don't think they should send a poet, quite frankly. This is what would happen if they actually did. They sent a poet into outer space. Her mission described the indescribable. Easy. She took it in stride at first. After all, she was a professional, had wrestled with the unknowable, indescribable, fleeting feelings of heart and mind, made the internal understandable, reflected on the world, on nature and humanity, even penned a couple of pieces about stars in her time. She was qualified, if anyone ever was, to be the first poet in space. The press went for the story in the big way, where no poet has gone before. Space, the final sonneteer. Star poet to explore the universe, dark matter of the soul. The mission's commander was less impressed. I don't care how many Pulitzers you've won, none, or how many Nobel Prizes for literature, zip. You're taking the place of someone who could actually be useful, and you're here to write poetry. Words. No words would come to her at first, all far too beautiful to be captured in verse, trapped in imprecise imagery. What form, what simile could do justice to the violent grandeur of a collapsing star, the awesome scale of a supernova, the marbled colours of a nebula, or paintbrush-stroke galaxies orbiting one another? Talk about writer's block. Despite the zero-G atmosphere, she was crushed by the gravity of the situation. She lurked in her cabin for days, almost paralysed with fear, whilst her crewmates went about their business like they knew what they were doing, which of course they did. She slept, mostly to avoid the responsibility that comes with being a poet. She wakes to an alarm, clanging like a writer dropping cliché after cliché, blaring into her head like an off-key juxtaposition, her sleep an inappropriate metaphor for the air onomatopoeically escaping the room. Running down the corridor, she is terror personified. Feet beating a skittish rhythm, she rhymes her key card with the bridge access pad. Bodies slumped like an understatement. All repeated assonance shapes, twisted consonants, angles. Looking down at the console, red light flashing, she sighs and says, "They should have sent an astronaut." Thank you. True story. I love writing about the kind of applied science in technology. I also like to write about science itself in its pure form. My favourite scientist, and we all have one, my favourite scientist is Dr. Schrödinger, father of quantum mechanics, obviously very famous for his eponymous cat experiment. I'm in a room full of scientists and science buffs, so the cat's alive and dead in a box at the same time, illustrating a quantum state of being. Fascinating, brilliant. My second favourite scientist, we all have a top three. My second favourite scientist is Dr. Oetker. Yeah, inventor of the frozen pizza, legend. Yeah, he's brilliant. He actually is a German scientist, biologist, who invented a kind of portable baking soda, which is why he's well known for his range of baked goods and muffins and stuff like that. So I've written a poem where I've imagined them in the kind of same universe. This is called the Schrödinger-Oertke entanglement. Now, the last line of this is basically a punchline. As a poet, you can write jokes, whack in line breaks, and put it in a book. It's quite nice. If you get the punchline before I get to it, laugh early, and everyone else will think you're very, very sexy. So this is called the Schrödinger-Oertke entanglement. Schrödinger, quantum mechanics, Oertke, muffins. Goes this. If Dr. Schrödinger had also been Dr. Oertke, and in a quantum universe this is theoretically possible, then we are all in for a treat. Because with Dr. Schrödinger-Oertke's products, you can have your cake. Right? Yeah, I'm not even going to do the punchline because everyone's got it. Check out my Instagram. I put stuff like that up. That's the Schrödinger-Oertke entanglement. All right, a couple more from me. I'm going to go here. So I think science gives us technology, and technology gives us new ways to communicate, right? I think science is a language, mathematics is a language, but my favorite language to come out of science is, of course, the emoji, which we all use nowadays. This has massively replaced the old emoticon. And people say kind of the use of emoji is kind of destroying communication. We're here at a science communication event, and how can we communicate effectively in a world where we say things with these little pictorial representations? I actually think emoji are incredibly powerful. People say they kind of augment text. I actually think we can do a lot more with emoji. So I've written this entire poem in emoji for you. They were hard to rhyme. I gave it a go, though. This is my poem in emoji. It goes like this. A house party. It's arty-farty, full of hipsters, posers, and a couple of jokers. And a girl, a boy. Eyes meet. I'm glad you like that. That's kind of the basis of the whole poem. A smile returned, it's sweet. He waves like a tool. Be cool, she thinks. He walks, he talks. A drink? Yep, she says. Be back soon, he says. 2 beers, clink. Cheers, then nothing. Silence, they're tongue-tied. It's awkward. I think this is the noise you make internally when things are awkward. We all make that noise. She says, okay, why did the chicken shoot the comedian? He rolls his eyes, she replies, because chicken's sick of their crossing road. Bullshit! He sighs, oh man. No way! So nerdy, he says, but ice broken, they laugh. The music is cheesy. The Spice Girls, wet, wet, wet. The Monkeys. This clicker's really slow, so it's going to take a while. Beatles, very good. The Four Tops. All right, you had the guess at the Beatles. Anyone on this one? What do you think? Any guesses? What we got? We got Grease.
Grease soundtrack.
Very good, Grease soundtrack, well played. What do we reckon? What's going up next? Music, cheesy music.
Hammer Time.
Good guess, Smashing Pumpkins. The Doors, the Scissor Sisters, Talking Heads, loads of people, all sorts of people, very slowly snaking around the room and doing the conga. There we go. They dance. It's a whirlwind romance. They kiss. They talk. They hold hands. From sunset to first light, they kiss. They wish this party wouldn't end. It's like 2 a.m. and it ends. They swap numbers. He says goodbye, that wave again, and he leaves. The night bus home, she checks her phone. Message received. It's really small. Of all the emojis he could have sent, just one says it all. Thank you. Come on. All right, one more from me. Thank you so much for having me, FameLab. A couple of quick plugs before I go. As Jonathan mentioned, I'm half of a poetry science double act called Dr. Illingworth and Mr. Simpson. I'm sure lots of you may know Sam Illingworth. He's currently in Vienna. talking at a geological conference. We do lots of stuff with poetry and science, all kinds of performance actually. We like to mash poetry, science and the arts together. We like to put the A in STEM. Also, this is me. If you fancy, come and say hello. And this is my book, which I'm not allowed to sell here, so I definitely don't have copies. Don't come try and buy one from me. Come say, hey, Dan Simpson, poet everywhere. My book is called Applied Mathematics. It's poetry. Poetry. It's not a maths textbook. Right, final poem from me. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like what poets do and what scientists do are so similar. We're essentially trying to understand the world and communicate that out, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I actually think that's a thing born of love. So I'd like to finally end with a love poem for you. It's called Applied Mathematics, and it goes like this. I love the curvature of your wave form, the way you diverge from the norm. I want to bring you to boiling point because too hot is not too warm. And when we touch, it's an electric storm. And you're the lightning conductor to my heightening thunder sound. You're the earth to my live wire. You keep me on the ground. If you were described by numbers, they would all be primes. But like Heisenberg, you're uncertain of where we are sometimes. So this verse is in a language that you can understand, bringing maths and poetry together in double helix strands. Because we've been carbon dating for a while, and sure, I'd made you smile, and statistically speaking, I'd make you laugh sooner or later. So the line on my mental graph paper that represented how I felt about you had an upward trajectory. Marking X's against the X-axis, I plot points and Y. Well, because X marks the spot where two lines intersect, connect in a future perfect tense, tell a story predicted by the focus of the locus. But this isn't magic, it's not hocus pocus. Because you have no need for the supernatural, whereas I'm odd, I'm not always logical, and sometimes even my numbers are irrational. But you, well, you are the right angle for me, acute reality to my obtuse literacy, not an abstract. And you pivot on moments like these. Affected by Brownian motion, we dance like particles. And I have this notion that I'm the definite article to your theoretical hypothesis, the words to your mathematics. For this is my medium of transmission. And I'm no paranormal magician. There are rules in writing too. Creating literary fission through rhyme addition, division of lines to ease transition, multiplying meaning by verb position, subtraction of words made more powerful by omission. No, it's not a precise science, but there is a method to it. For example, electrons flow between two polar points. I am the north and you the south. We can't help but be attracted, and we reacted like water and phosphorus to form a compound substance because you plus me equals us, and chemistry is undeniable, like electromagnetism or gravity. And though there are sparks of volatility, ours is not a weak but a strong nuclear force. And in all probability, this is how we'll always be, because when we deviate, it's anything but standard, a sign that we're meant to be physical with our biology. And maybe I'm going off on a tangent here. But pressed together, our contact force is not normal. Cosmic strings vibrate in harmonious commotion, and when we oscillate in our simple harmonic motion, I think that maybe one day we'll propagate, but that's in the future, in our fourth dimension. I don't want to upset the equilibrium, I don't want to cause any tension, because our equation is balanced. You're the constant variable in my life, the quantity for which I did not factor. You keep me powered, you turn me on, you are my chain reactor, the dark matter I do not fully understand. The bright colours on my spectrum band, you are pure mathematics, but applied together, we are poetry in motion. Thank you. Thank you so much, FameLab.
Excellent, well done. And I thought I was good at puns. Well done, that was brilliant. Dan Simpson, everyone. Thank you. As I thought they might, our judges might need a few more seconds. So I was talking today to a French astrophysicist. Her name is Eileen Courtney, and she told me about where we are in the universe. I mean, you can't see this, you might be able to Google it, but it was one of the most fascinating conversations I've had. So we're in the Science Gallery, which is on Pier Street, which is in Dublin 2, which is in Dublin County, which is in Ireland, which is in Europe, which is in the world. Where are we next? What's the next one? Yeah, we're in the Milky Way galaxy. Nice. Yeah, okay. And where is the Milky Way galaxy? No, there's one up from that. Anyone know where we are from? The local group. So our galaxy, which has the Milky Way, which has 200 billion systems, so 200 billion stars in the Milky Way, has these planets and these stars, and the planets separated. And all these things, up until now, they all look round. So planets, moons, stars, spiral galaxies, they all look round. But go one system up to Lytica, which is a recently discovered supercluster of stars. And the structures of the galaxies that we have around us take on a really weird, feathery, like pearl necklace shape. Google LN and supercluster and have a look at it. It's the most extraordinary thing you've ever seen. And if you like me, you're an atheist, it might get you to pause for 1 second and wonder, how on earth does our galaxy look like that? Check it out. Right, I've filled some time aptly. Our judges are now waiting, by the way. Please welcome them back. Great time to get a coughing fit. Right, there are 3 prizes from our judges. How was it, judges? Good? Great fun?
It's very tough.
Good. Yes,
it's very tough.
I can see you're slightly out of breath. Was it like you've arrived at a unanimous decision?
We have.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
We have.
Yeah.
It is very tricky.
We
I think
have
this year
judged.
is harder probably than most.
Very tricky.
So we've got 3 prizes to announce. And then we have our audience. We'll start with our audience prize, shall we? Does that make sense? So you've all voted for
Jonathan,
one person.
Could we just say just a couple of things
Oh,
about
right, absolutely. You have to get
yeah. Just to commend all of you to get that much information down to 3 minutes. I couldn't do it, right? Because I make my job is to do a lot of presentations. Just really well done to get that packed information into 3 minutes was outstanding. Also, it strikes me, as it strikes me the young scientists every year, that it's triggered by your interest in humanity and making the world a better place. So, congratulations to all of you.
Eloquently put, Shay, thanks very much. So, congratulations to everyone. The time has come to be judged. We'll go in reverse order as that creates more tension. So our audience prize winner today was... They do this in all the shows, don't they? Yeah. Eileen Courtney! So this is, our judges are going to present the prize. Congratulations, Eileen. Well done. There you go. That's your prize.
Thanks
well
very
done.
much.
I've blocked this awkwardly. If you're an actor, you know what I mean. Thank you very much. Well done, Eileen. Our 3rd place prize winner goes to Eileen Courtney. Congratulations, well done. And this goes to, I don't know why we're doing this, but there you go. Yeah,
There you go.
I think it's for the photographs. Yeah, okay, great. Well done, Eileen. Oh, yeah, sorry, photograph. Actually, you're supposed to stay on the stage, aren't they? Yeah. Okay, so stay on the stage there, if you don't mind, Eileen, as we announce our 2nd winner of the 2nd place. It goes to Eileen Courtney. No, I'm joking. Fiona Malone. You go there. Well done, Fiona. How are you? Excellent, excellent. And it gives me great pleasure to announce this year's FameLab Ireland 2019 winner. It is Hayden Wilkinson! Well done, Hayden. Stay on stage, please.
You get in the middle.
Huge congratulations to Hayden, who will say a little something. But before he does, huge thanks to, of course, our sponsors, Science Foundation Ireland, CPL, Henkel, and all of our other partners who make tonight happen. Congratulations to all the contestants. And, of course, to our winners. Thanks to our judges. Ladies and gentlemen, Hayden Wilkinson! Now, would you like to say a few words? Would you like to say a few words, Hayden?
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. This is unreal. I'd like to thank everyone who showed up, everyone on the live stream, but most importantly, everyone who presented today. It was unreal. It was such a good voyage to have to go on with all of you through our masterclasses and everything else. So I hope we can stay friends after this. That'd be really nice. And thank you to these guys as well. It's so good. They're the best people and everyone. Thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed tonight. This is a really fun night for me, and of course it's all run by the British Council. Hayden will be travelling to Cheltenham. We'll be following his journey on News Talk's Future Proof, so do check in and see how he does. We'll all be rooting for you, Hayden. For now, thank you very much, and good night.